Sears.
To follow on. So I'm not going to be nearly as inspiring or as awesome as she was. I just want to talk a little bit of strategy, to share a few key ideas, a few key message points that I think are important if this fight continues. And if we move forward after today, and you have to go to the entire health assembly, or the entire assembly, and then to the media, and then to the law after that. Here are just a few key things I think your assembly people might want to hear from you that I think are very, very important. First of all, the way I see this bill is not about whether vaccines are right or wrong, because assembly people see this bill and they say, oh, it's about getting everyone vaccinated. They just automatically think it's a good idea. And so you got to open their eyes to the fact that this bill has nothing to do with that. It's about all kinds of other issues. So if you get them thinking away from that this vote is a vote for or against vaccines, I think that's very critical they understand that. Because we all understand that, but I don't think they do. And so once you get them off of that pedestal, they can start looking at what the bill actually does. And let them know that if they vote against this bill, it doesn't mean they're anti-vaccine at all. They can be 100% pro-vaccine in every way and still see that this bill is a bad idea. So spread that message. Now, if you have some extra time with them to spend, you can point out to them that the very purpose of this bill is to reduce diseases in California schools. And what they hope is it will also reduce diseases statewide. And you can point out a few things to them as to why this bill won't significantly reduce diseases in schools. And I'll tell you why. Well, first of all, the measles outbreak didn't even occur in schools. Our schools are very, very well, very highly immunized. I think a couple kids who had measles, they didn't realize it, attended school, but I can't find a single case where anyone actually transmitted measles to another person in school. If I'm wrong, let me know. I can't find it anywhere in the public health department that one single case of measles happened within a school environment. Therefore, even if this bill was in effect last year, the measles outbreak would have still happened in exactly the same manner. So make sure they know that. And make sure they know this is not about saving the school children from measles because they weren't affected. Now, what Dr. Pan likes to talk about is whooping cough. Because if there's any disease that does go around in schools left and right, absolutely, it's whooping cough. It's everywhere. And so the assembly members are going to say, well, let's vaccinate everyone against whooping cough so it won't spread around schools. Well, you can show them the science. Print this up from the Centers for Disease Control website. The Centers for Disease Control states, and I quote, it is not, the outbreaks of whooping cough are not because of unvaccinated children. Rather, it is the waning immunity of the vaccine that allows the disease to spread, even in fully vaccinated children. I think that's my paraphrase. The CDC makes it very clear the vaccine doesn't work very well. It works somewhat, but it doesn't work very well, and it wears off quickly. Therefore, even fully vaccinated children are catching whooping cough left and right. The California Public Health Department states on their website that out of all the children who caught whooping cough in schools or anywhere last year, for all the children for whom we have vaccine records, 90% of all the cases of whooping cough in those kids were vaccinated. Only 10% of our whooping cough cases were unvaccinated. So you can tell the assembly person at best, this bill might reduce whooping cough by 10% in schools, but that's not enough to uproot and change the lives of hundreds of thousands of California school children. And you can also point out a brand new study released last week by the American Academy of Pediatrics, yay, said that the teenage whooping cough booster that we give to every 7th grader wears off and becomes ineffective after just 2 years. So you have an entire high school of children walking around with very little whooping cough immunity. Therefore, this bill is not going to change whooping cough. We all know the flu isn't even on this bill yet, the flu vaccine, but it could be. But we all know last year's flu vaccine was only 19% effective, according to the Centers for Disease Control. So even if we do vaccinate everyone against the flu's still going to go around. Those are the only diseases we're looking at that could be harmful to anybody in the school environment. Measles didn't happen, the bill's not going to change whooping cough, and it's not going to change the flu. So make sure your assembly members know that this bill is unnecessary and it won't change diseases by any means that we want it to. Final idea. I know everyone talks a lot about how we have about 2.5% personal belief exemption rate. It's a very small fraction of all the people in California, and I agree with that. But I think it's important also that the assembly members know that this bill won't just affect a tiny number of children. I think we do need to make sure they know that 225,000 children at least could be potentially kicked out of school over this bill. They need to know it's a huge group of children being affected, and each one of their parents, one of them will have to stay home to become a teacher, a parent will have to quit a job, they'll lose half their income. It's going to have a devastating effect on California life as we know it. So we need to make sure they're not just kicking a handful of kids out of school. It's actually a pretty large number. And you compare that to the 0 number of children that this bill would have saved for measles, and you basically point it out like this. If this bill passes, a huge number of families are going to be affected. Hundreds of thousands of families now and in the future to come will be impacted. If this bill doesn't pass, 0 people will be affected. Life is just going to go on. Sometimes the status quo is the best we have and best we will ever have. Point out to assembly people, 0 immunocompromised children were affected by measles. And I also don't know of any cases of whooping cough in immunocompromised children as well. 0 people will be affected if this bill fails. Hundreds of thousands will be dramatically impacted if it passes. Make sure your assembly people know that. Thank you for coming out today.